Hi everyone, it's Cassie here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're playing with the Simon Says Stamp You Shine July 2022 kit. And as far as I know, it's still available, but I'll have the separate pieces linked down below as I can find them. Let's go ahead and talk about what comes in this kit. It's a great little kit. Of course, you're going to get some candy. You always get a little bit of candy, and who doesn't need some candy while crafting? You're going to get the Foundry wax, and if you haven't played with this stuff, it's really cool. And this is the gilded color. You get a little brush to work with the Foundry wax as well. You're also going to get the Tim Holtz Idea-ology window frames, a bunch of them. You're going to get this Simon Says Stamp Emboss and Cut Flower Garden. It's really cute. You get your $5 off coupon. I'll have that listed down below. You're going to get an A2 black envelope, and then you're going to get 12 sheets of 6x8 Simple Stories Vintage Lemon Twist. I love this color combination. That teal with that yellow just has my heart all happy. Throw in some pops of black, and yeah, you got me. I love this stuff. So pretty. I tried to hoard a little bit of it, used quite a bit of it, but I definitely hoarded some of it because I just could not help myself. So we've got all of those, and then we're going to move on to the stamp set, which is called You Shine. It's got some really lovely sentiments and some darling images. And we're going to color up a bunch of those. You get your idea sheet, and then you're going to get a 90-pound piece of matte gold cardstock, a 110-pound Neenah solar white, and a 100-pound bright yellow. And I'm going to be honest with you, I forgot all about the cardstock. I didn't use any of it, so maybe I'll save that for something later. So as I always do, I stamped out all of my images and I went ahead and colored them ahead of time. This time I stamped them onto some watercolor paper, and I used my Daniel Smith watercolors along with some, like, you can see I've got some shimmery watercolor in there as well. I like to blend those up in there. I've got lots of great shimmer. But I stamped them using some VersaFine Clear Nocturne ink, and then I did heat emboss those with some clear embossing powder just so that I could color everything with ease and not worry about one thing next to the other, because when you use that embossing powder, it kind of creates a little bit of a well. So I do like that. But I'm going to fussy cut everything out. I'm pretty sure there is a matching die to go with it. All right, let's get into card number one. I'm actually going to be using these A6 card bases that I have for all the cards that I make today, other than a couple of small ones. And those measure 6.5 by 4.25. So I'm going to measure this. I believe it's 6.5. Anyway, no, it might not be. I think it's 6.25 by 4.5. So I'm doing 4.25 by 6 inches on this piece of cardstock. Because I want there to be a little bit of a white border. And I'm using those A6 because I think I got those in a kit, and I was like, you know what, let's make a bunch of A6 cards. Might as well. And then these will all just go together. And I may decorate the envelopes later on also, but for now we're just going to go with the cards. So I'll start with this piece of cardstock. I'm going to go ahead and use my liquid glue. Sometimes that gets a tiny bit clogged, but it's always easy to unclog just using the little pin that comes with it. That's that Barely Art glue. I'm going to go ahead and take my liquid glue, put that on the back, and go ahead and adhere this piece down to my card base. And then I've got this window frame I want to use from that Idea-ology. Before I put it down, I'm going to put that little piece of blue paper down as well. That'll just kind of ground things a little bit more also. And then I'm going to bring in the gilded Foundry wax, and I'm going to use the brush that comes with it. I'll tell you right now, I don't love using the brush. Now that is because I am just one of those people that likes to get my hands right in it. I don't mind getting my hands dirty. When I do mixed media, I'm usually like covered in whatever, so I don't mind that. But you're going to want to take your Foundry wax and shake that stuff up a bunch. Get that little ball bearing inside moving. Put a little bit on your glass mat or whatever it is you're working on, and then close up your bottle. The reason you want to do that is because this stuff will dry, and this is why you want to work with a little bit at a time. The reason you want to work with a little bit at a time is also because if you put too much out there, it will dry up. You can add some like isopropyl alcohol to it, and that will kind of reactivate it, but that'll also kind of water it down. So keep that in mind. So I am using the brush because I want to show you that it can be done. I like a little bit more organic feel, so I'm trying to just kind of like splotch that on there a little bit. I didn't want it to be so painted, so I'm kind of pouncing that on there. I'm noticing that that wax is getting built up inside of the brush, and this is where that isopropyl alcohol will come in super handy, and I'll show you that at the end. But I'm just putting it over some of those surfaces. pouncing it around in there. This is the last time I'm going to use this brush. I'm going to move on to using my finger, which again, I don't mind getting dirty. A baby wipe will clean that off, or again, the isopropyl alcohol. But I'm just pouncing that around on there. And then I'm going to grab my little bottle of that isopropyl alcohol that I have, squirt that onto the brush, and then work out some of that wax, because I don't want that obviously staying in there. Then I'll clean up my mess, and I'm going to bring in my heat tool. So this is where the magic of this Foundry wax comes in. Once you heat this, it starts to look like wax, which is so cool. It's different than an embossed look, so don't think that it's that. It definitely looks like you've put some wax on there, which I think is awesome. So keep your bottle away from heat. That'll just make it all expand in there, and then you're done for. But isn't that neat? I love the look of that wax on the outside. We're going to go ahead and glue this down to our card front. And then I'll take the flowers and lemons that I've die cut, or not die cut, but fussy cut out, and we're just going to glue that to the front. I like how that looks. I have a piece of scrap, as you can see on the side there, a piece of scrap paper, and I'm going to glue that to the inside of our card along with one of the little flowers that I had painted. That'll add a little something to the inside of our card. And then I need to stamp out my sentiment. So I've grabbed Happy Birthday, and I'm going to bring in some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. It's a nice pigment ink, and that'll make sure that what I stamp is nice and black and crisp. And then I'll bring in my guillotine trimmer, and I'm going to trim my sentiment down. I love doing that. It's for me, an easy way to make sure that I get things fairly straight. And then I can just take my scraps and chuck those. I'm going to put this on the window, but I need some foam squares. So I'm just going to take a couple, put those on each side of that window, peel off that release paper, and then I'll put my sentiment down. And that's going to finish off our first card. So I love that. Love all that sparkle too from the painting. Card number 2 will be another A6 card. So I'm going to trim this down. This is just another piece of that cardstock, and because I'm not used to making A6 cards, just want to make sure that I'm cutting it correctly. So I cut it to 4 inches by 6, or 6 inches by 4 1/4. And then now I'm just going to go ahead and glue this down to the front of my card base. This will be a top folding A6 card. And then I have some of those lemons all there, and I've kind of played around with placement, so I'm going to go ahead and glue these down. I'm keeping these as easy mailers, but you could very easily just add some foam tape to these if you wanted to have those popped up, and add extra dimension if that's what you're looking for. But I'll tell you, I love that lemons are in right now, and they're fun to color. I had such a blast coloring all of these things. It was just I love to sit, watch television, or even just sit in my craft room with some music playing and just color. It's just fun. Stamping out my sentiment right on to my card base. You could really mess that up, but if you do, you just put paper over the top of it, so I wasn't worried. And then I'll take a little bit of glue and put that on my little bee, and then we'll stick him down. And as an embellishment, I've decided I'm going to bring in that Foundry wax. I'm going to treat it like a Nouveau Drops. Shake it up really good. Don't waste too much time doing this as far as like popping those down, because it will start to pool around the tip. And then you got clogs if you do that. So I'm just trying to pounce down a little bit of these as little drops. And then, not squeezing, just kind of pouncing that down. And let me show you what that looks like before I've heated it. It's nice and dull, kind of a matte finish. I'm going to go ahead and heat that up, and then those will get like almost wet like wax. So little wax drops. I love it. I think it's fun. And then once we're done with that, that's going to finish off our second card. I may go back and do a little something on the inside, but I love all the sparkle. I love those little drops. I think this turned out like a fun little card. For card number 3, we're going to make a couple of 4-bar cards, and if you don't know what those are, closed up they measure 3.5 inches by 5 inches. I wanted to pull in this little Emboss and Cut Flower Garden by Simon Says stamp and do a little something with that. I thought it would be really cute. So I'm just measuring it. I think it's roughly about 2.5 inches. But before I cut the paper for that, I'm going to cut my card front paper, and I am going to measure this to be 5 inches by 3.5 inches. I want it to take up the full front of our 4-bar card. I love making little 4-bar in case you don't have a ton of things to say or you just want to send a quick little note. I think these are a great size for that. So I'm just trimming up some extra paper that I'm going to use on the inside and the outside. And then I'm going to trim this paper to be that 2.5 inches. So it's 2.5 by 2.5. You can make it a little bigger, of course, if you wanted. But I'm just going to make a couple of them that are small enough to fit right in there. And then when you run this through your die cutting machine, just kind of pay attention to how you do it. I actually had to add a couple of pieces of cardstock shim to it just to make sure that it cut as well. But just kind of pay attention to your machine. Don't force anything, and you may just have to kind of figure out what works for you. So I love it. I think that's so fun. So I'm going to do a couple of those, and then I need to do some out of white cardstock. I could have made it easier on myself and just cut another piece of white cardstock to be 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches just to fit behind it. But no, I'm extra, so I cut out the little center. And then trying to figure out the sentiment that I wanted. I'm just going to use this one that says hello, and we'll just stamp that right on that white piece of cardstock for both of those. And then I'm going to bring in that Foundry wax again. And as I said, I'm not going to use the paintbrush. I want to be able to feel what I'm doing here because I want to rub it over the embossing. I got a little heavy-handed there, but I'm basically just trying to be super, super light and just barely rub that over what's been embossed. And I love the look that you get. And then I'll rub it on the edges. And I'll do that for both of them. And then when I've got that, which I'll show you here, and I'm only, like I said, using small amounts of it at a time. You don't want to add too much on there and then either not use it so you're wasting it, or have it dry up and then you can't use it. So it does dry quickly though, so that's why I'm using it in small amounts. And then once I get that on there, I'll just use a baby wipe to clean off my finger, and I can clean off my glass mat with that as well. Very easy cleanup to do that. And then this is where I'll bring in my heat tool. I love watching the magic of it. It just kind of starts shining. Looks just like we put some wax on there, which is so super cool. Doing that for both of them. And then we can actually start doing a little bit of assembly. So I'll take this piece of cardstock that I've trimmed down. We're going to put that on the front. I love the grounding this gives. And I did end up making these. Actually, I made them 5 inches. My card bases were a tiny bit smaller than that. So I am going to have to trim these down. Here's where I decide to bring in some foam squares because I want this to be popped up a tiny bit just to add a little bit of dimension. Since they're already 4-bar, they're pretty easy to mail anyway, so a tiny bit of dimension isn't going to do too much. And then I'll pop that up over the top of our sentiment. And I'm going to bring in one of the little butterflies that I've painted. And we're going to put that on there as well after we get this attached to our card base. But like I said, I cut these a little smaller. I'm not sure why I did that, but I did. So I'm going to have to trim off some of the excess that will show on the other side. Not a big deal. And this is the butterfly I chose, so we'll just put a little bit of liquid glue on him and stick him down. And we're going to do that for both of them, but Miles wanted to come in and be quality control. I know y'all love to see him when he does pop in. Max doesn't do it quite as much anymore. They tend to be asleep during the day now. But here he is checking out my workspace, probably completely disgusted with what a mess it is around my desk with all the paper and such. I had thrown out my back, and I probably shouldn't have been crafting at this point anyway, but it at least made my spirit feel better, even if it didn't make my back feel better. So we're going to take this last little piece. We're going to put that on the inside of our card. Love doing that. It's just some of those little added touches, you know. And here's where you can see that I definitely made those card bases a tiny bit smaller. But that's okay. They'll fit in the envelope. Better to be a little smaller than a little bigger, right? So we trim off the excess. And once that's done, that's going to finish off card number 3. I love how those turned out. Moving on to card number 4, I just loved this pattern paper that said soak up the sunshine, and it had such pretty elements around it. So I decided to cut it down for my A6 card. So I'm going to cut it to 4¼ by 6 inches. And then we're going to just put this right on our card base. And now I did decide to doctor it up a little bit with a few of my colored images, but remember, your cards don't have to be like some elaborate, it would work just fine to have this alone on the front of the card. I think it's really, really pretty. And who's gonna question? I mean, it's a really cool card. Just having that soak up the sunshine. So I do add a couple of the little leaves, and I add the lemons. But again, you could leave those off of there. And then just kind of playing around with that placement there. I don't do anything else to the outside. I'm going to go ahead and glue this down to the front of my card base. And then I'm going to take the scraps from this cardstock, and we're going to put that on the inside of the card, just because I liked that. So I'm going to attach this to some of that black, so a little bit of that black shows through for extra interest, and then we'll go ahead and glue this down to the inside of the card. And then I'm going to take one of the butterflies, and we'll add that to the inside of the card as well. But there's no other embellishments. I probably could have added the lemon. That would have worked really well too, but I have so many of those really pretty butterflies that I decided to add that to the inside. And when I'm done with that, that's going to finish off card number 4, a really easy one. But I love how that one turned out too. Card number 5 is just another simple A6 card that I'm going to be using a lot of the colored elements that I made. And I've chosen this tealy colored paper with the yellow butterflies on the background. I just love that. And I did cut down another piece of cardstock to measure the exact size of our A6, which was 6¼ by 4½. I'm going to stamp out my sentiment, "You Shine," onto some of that cardstock that I have sitting there. And originally I thought about bringing in one of the window frames, but I decided against that. I'm going to use those or another one for some mixed media here in a bit. And the only reason why I want to do it that way is because while I was playing with this, I thought, why don't, for my next project, I make a mixed media page? So that's what's coming next. But I just glued down a bunch of my images. You could really doctor it up by using foam squares or something like that, but I decided to keep it a little bit simple. I just love these lemons. I love them so much, and I really do enjoy how much I had fun painting them and how those turned out. But here's where I'm just going to trim down my sentiment, just using my guillotine trimmer. This would have worked too, but I like this just fine as well. And I don't add any other embellishments to this, although I could do that if I wanted to, like maybe I could have added the Foundry wax like I did earlier, using it like a Nouveau drop again. But I'm going to go ahead and glue this down to that yellow cardstock that I have. It's going to have just some of the yellow showing on the left and right hand side, and then I'll adhere this down to the front of my card base. And then when we're done with that, that's going to finish off this card. Very happy with how that turned out. It's probably because I just love this color combination so much. All right, so here's the bonus project. We are going to make a mixed media page. I just loved this page so much that I wanted to play with it, kind of doctor it up. So I'm going to fussy cut right on the edge this piece right here because I love it. And I do love the sentiment. I love when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. I think that's, it's cute. It's kind of corny, but it's cute, and I like it. And I'm going to take this piece of cardstock. I'm going to cut it down to 6 by 6. I actually have a little mixed media book. I don't do a lot with it on my channel. Although I have a video ready, I could edit it. But this makes it a little less intimidating. It's just watercolor cardstock that I have in there, and occasionally I add to it from time to time. But I've cut down my watercolor or my cardstock to 6 by 6, and then I did go ahead and try to use my Happy Planner punch and tried to get it lined up well, but I'm a little off. I am going to find a way to work with it, and I end up really liking the way I do work with it. So, but yeah, sometimes it just doesn't doesn't line up perfectly. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and glue down my page to my watercolor paper. And that's just the base I have. And you'll see it's off by just a tiny bit at the bottom. I'll trim off the excess on the top. And then I've got this piece of cardstock that I'm going to add to the bottom because I like the black. I think that kind of grounds things a little bit. I like that. And then this piece, I'm going to kind of play around, see what I want to do with it. I'm going to punch it. And then I'm going to stick it on and it'll fit wherever because it's obviously bigger than my 6x6. So we'll just go ahead and glue this down. And then I'll cut off the excess. But I love that piece. It just, oh, it's neat. And it's kind of fun taking a piece of paper that's, you know, obviously already looks like it's, you know, done and everything, and doctoring it up how you want it. For this, because I do like the sentiment, I've decided I'm going to trim out each word. So I'll start by trimming off the lemons, and then I'll fussy cut around the lemons, and then I'm going to straight cut around each of the other words. And then we'll add it to our piece where we want it. So all I've really done is taken the piece of pattern paper that was in this kit, and I am just making it extra. So there's all the words. Here's what I'm going to grab in one of those window frames. I'm going to take this big oval one. I think it looks, and it works perfectly too. And I'll then start making the edges of my paper a little bit more mixed media. So there's where that gilded, the Foundry wax come in, the gilded, it comes in great. And I'll just rub it all around the edges. And then like we did in the past, we'll just heat that up and make it look all nice and waxy. And I'll clean off my mess just again using a baby wipe. But then I'll heat set that and then make it look like wax. Go all around the paper with that. But I love it. I'm so happy with how this one ended up turning out. And it just is going in my little book. So every once in a while I find little things or I get an idea and just do a little something something. But this is one of them. So we'll glue down the window frame. I thought about putting the wax on it, but I decided against it in the end. And then I'm going to start taking each of the words and putting them inside. We'll start at the top because I want to make sure that lemons is going to fit in there just fine. And we'll work our way down. And I wasn't sure exactly where I wanted the U, the word U, so I'm going to wait a second before I actually put it down. We'll put lemonade down at the bottom and make right above it. And then I do decide I'm going to go ahead and put when life gives you, I mean obviously it's got to go up there, but I just wanted to make sure. And then I bring in some Dries skinny strips. I had one perfectly cut already. And then I'll put a little bit of glue on those edges, peel off the release paper and stick this down. And then as you can see, I have a bee and a flower ready to go. I'm going to put those on there as well. We'll just pop those on the edge. But I am going to have a couple extra pieces left over for some future cards that I, got a butterfly and then that window box. But there is project number 6. I love how this turned out. And I'm going to go ahead and show you all the things that I made using this kit today. I would love to know which one was your favorite. If you did, in fact, have a favorite, go ahead and list that down in the comment section down below. As I always say, that's one of my favorite parts of making these cards is finding out which ones you guys like best. Or even if you liked this kit, if you're finding it hard to be inspired, or if it was just so inspiring you couldn't stop making. I love hearing all of that. So if you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. And as always, big, big thanks for all the love and support you guys give. You guys are incredible. And I'll see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.